morning, dear boys and girls. Once again, warm welcome to this lockdown period. Today, we are discussing another topic of the first chapter, displacement reaction and double displacement reaction. We have already studied in the previous classes about decomposition reaction and combination reaction. Today we are going to focus in this class about displacement reaction and double displacement reaction. Dear students, this is so simple topic. I think I am talking about displacement reaction here. We take a simple example. For example, silver nitrate. When silver nitrate, or you take simple examples of copper sulfate. Why I have taken copper sulfate, I will describe it. Copper sulfate, when reacts with iron, it produces iron sulfate and copper. Dear students, here you can find a reaction, copper sulfate solution. It is bluish in color. That's why it is also called blue vitriol. इसको हम लोग अपने जमाने में ग्रीन नीला थोथा कहा करते थे जब हम लोग पढ़ते थे. So this is called blue vitriol, copper sulfate. When it reacts with iron, it produces greenish color of iron sulfate and copper is also produced. What you find in this reaction? As you know, iron is more reactive than copper. You have studied about in class 8 in the reactivity series in chapter metal and non-metal. So you know that iron is more reactive than copper. So in this reaction, iron displaces copper to produce iron sulfate and copper gets separated. So in this reaction, a more reactive element, iron, displaces comparatively a less reactive element, that is copper, and forms iron sulfate, and copper is also produced. So this reaction is called displacement reaction. Now you can define displacement reaction. The reaction in which comparatively a more reactive element displaces comparatively a less reactive element and forms a new compound, then it is called displacement reaction. So I think, dear students, this reaction is so simple and so easy reactions. So once again I am repeating, the more reactive element displaces comparatively a less reactive element and produces a new compound, then it is called displacement reaction. In the same way, another reaction is double displacement reaction. What is double displacement reaction? Dear students, when two compounds reacts with when one compound reacts with another compound and produces two new compounds, then it is called double displacement reaction. I am explaining it through an example. Suppose there is a compound that is silver nitrate and another compound we are taking, that is sodium chloride. Sodium chloride, which is common salt that we use as food items. So when silver nitrate, this is also a salt. Sodium chloride, this is also a salt. So when silver nitrate reacts with sodium chloride, it produces sodium nitrate and silver chloride. Dear students, here you may find two reactants reacts and produces two new compounds by mutual exchanging of their ions. Hence, this is an example of double displacement reaction. Once again, I am going to explain it. Yes, dear students, here we have two compounds, silver nitrate and sodium chloride. These two compounds, when reacts, it produces two new compounds, that is sodium nitrate and silver chloride. So since in this reaction two compounds reacts to produce two new compounds by mutual exchanging of their ions, that's why this is called double displacement reaction. Now we are able to define double displacement reaction. The students, the chemical reaction in which two compounds react to produce two new compounds by mutual exchanging of their ions, by mutual exchanging of their atoms, or by mutual exchanging of the group of atoms, is called double displacement reaction. Dear students, now we'll discuss about another reaction which is called redox reaction. Very simple, very easy, very interesting. But dear students, this is not so much hard, but this is a little hard topic of this chapter. So now we'll discuss about redox reaction. Yes. So dear students, redox reaction. In this reaction, very easily you can understand there are two types of reactions are hidden in this reaction. How? Redox has been taken from red and ox. Here red means reduction and ox means oxidation. Very simply, now you can define this reaction, the chemical reaction in which both reduction and oxidation takes place is called redox reaction. This reaction is quite new for you because till 9th class you have not studied about this. So now first of all we should know what is oxidation reaction and what is reduction reaction. Then you will be able to know about redox reaction. So dear students, first of all we discuss about oxidation reaction. Oxidation reaction, simply you can define gain of oxygen, oxidation, loss of hydrogen, oxidation, loss of electron, oxidation. These three things you have to remember: gain of oxygen, loss of hydrogen, loss of electron. So the reaction in which gain of oxygen, yeah, oxygen is gained, then it is called oxidation reaction. Now I'm giving an example here. Suppose when we take copper, which is reddish brown in color, we take copper in its China dish, which is reddish brown in color, and we strongly heat it. When copper is heated, naturally in the presence of oxygen, it produces copper oxide, which is black in color. So naturally here chemical reaction takes place because reddish brown copper gets converted into blackish copper oxide. So this is an example of reaction. But how you can tell that this is an example of oxidation reaction? The dear students, here copper is burned, copper reacts with oxygen and produces copper oxide. So on the reactant side, copper has no oxygen, but on the product side we find that copper gains oxygen and it has oxygen. So you can see that during this reaction copper gains oxygen. As in this reaction copper gains oxygen, so it is an example of oxidation reaction. We are taking another example of reduction reaction. Once again I am repeating, oxidation means gain of oxygen, loss of hydrogen, loss of electron. Now about reduction reaction, we are taking an example of reduction reaction. Suppose CuO, copper oxide plus Zn, it reacts and it forms Cu plus ZnO. Here you find that copper oxide, which is black in color, or zinc granules is grayish in color. So when copper oxide reacts with zinc, it produces copper and zinc oxide. Here zinc is more reactive than copper, that's why zinc displaces copper here. Dear students, here we have not to focus about displacement reaction. A single reaction may be the example of different types of reactions, so you need not to worry about that. Here we have to focus about reduction reaction. Here you can find copper oxide has oxygen, but here copper has no oxygen. So copper oxide loses its oxygen atom and produces copper, reddish brown copper. That's why it is called reduction reaction, because in this reaction copper oxide loses its oxygen atom and produces copper. And now I think you know the basic things of oxidation and reaction. Very simply, you can tell now that the reaction in which oxygen is gained, the reaction in which a substance gains oxygen, then it is called oxidation reaction. And the reaction when a substance loses its oxygen atom, then it is called reduction reaction. And the reaction in which both oxidation and reduction takes place is called redox reaction. So now students, this reaction is not quite new for you because oxidation reaction is simple, reduction reaction is simple, and the reaction in which both oxidation and reduction takes place is called redox reaction. Here one more example I am taking. This example has been asked very more times, I think 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years in board examination. Just you find here CuO plus H2, it produces Cu plus H2O. Yes, dear students, this example has also been given in your NCERT book. Here copper oxide reacts with hydrogen and it produces copper and water. Why I have written? Because this is an example of redox reaction. In this reaction, both oxidation and reduction takes place. Boys and girls, please listen carefully. This is the most important reaction of this chapter. How it is called redox reaction? Here copper oxide loses its one atom of oxygen and produces copper. So loss of oxygen means reduction. It means copper oxide gets reduced and produces copper. Another example, H2, hydrogen has no oxygen, but here hydrogen gains oxygen to produce water. So since hydrogen gains oxygen, hence you can see that hydrogen gets oxidized. So now it may be clear that the copper oxide gets reduced to produce copper and hydrogen gets oxidized to produce water. Since in this reaction both oxidation and reduction takes place, so we can see that this is an example of redox reaction. Here one more thing, sometimes it has been asked that which substance gets oxidized, which substance gets reduced, which are reducing agent, which are oxidizing agent. So two more definitions are there, oxidizing agent and reducing agent. Dear students, the substance which help in the oxidation and itself gets reduced is called oxidizing agent, and the substance which help in the reduction and itself gets oxidized is called reducing agent. It is not clear, I think. Just see it. Here copper oxide gets reduced because copper oxide loses its one atom of oxygen and produces copper. Dear students, here hydrogen gas helps copper oxide to get reduced. So here you can see that the hydrogen is reducing agent. Why it is reducing agent? Because hydrogen helps in the reduction of copper oxide. So hydrogen in this reaction is a reducing agent. In the same way, hydrogen gets oxidized to produce water because hydrogen gains oxygen. But in this oxidation, copper oxide helps oxidation, oxidization of hydrogen. So copper oxide here oxidizing agent. Now it is clear that in this reaction copper oxide gets reduced. So which substance gets reduced? Copper oxide. Which substance gets oxidized? Hydrogen. Which is oxidizing agent? Copper oxide is oxidizing agent because copper oxide helps in the oxidation of hydrogen. Which substance is reducing agent? So hydrogen is reducing agent because hydrogen helps in the reduction of copper oxide. So once again I am going to clarify the definitions. What is redox reaction? The reaction or the chemical reaction in which both oxidation and reduction takes place is called redox reaction. What is oxidation? The gain of oxygen is called oxidation. The loss of hydrogen is called oxidation. The loss of electron is called oxidation. What is reduction? The loss of oxygen is called reduction. Gain of hydrogen is called reduction. Gain of electron is called reduction. And what is oxidizing agent? The substance which helps in the oxidation and itself gets reduced is called oxidizing agent. and the substance which help in the reduction and itself gets oxidized is called reducing agent. It's very clear.